Welcome everyone to our webinar today. We will be talking today about migration to SAP Commerce Cloud. This assumes a little bit that you have an on-prem implementation already. This webinar is part of a series on a topic where we have been focusing on SAP Commerce Cloud. As many of you are aware, there's been some changes and some major evolutions that had happened to the platform. So my colleague will be talking about it a little bit later. We will run this presentation in the following format. So we'll give a bit of an introduction about Portaltech Reply. We will then move on to a brief introduction of SAP Commerce Cloud, and then we'll focus on the migration itself. And as you can see at the end, we have Q&A where we will answer your questions. So if you have any questions, please post them in the chat window, and we'll pick them up at the end of this session. And of course, at the end, we'll share also our contact details and webinar topics, overview those that have happened already in the past and those that are currently scheduled. Also, this session is being recorded, as you might have noticed. So if you don't want to be on record, just type in your questions in the chat window, and we will pick them up at the queue once we reach the Q&A session. And I think that is it for the introduction. I hope you will find this useful and interesting. This webinar is part of the SAP Commerce Cloud series that we have run. It's the third webinar. So there is also one available that gives an overview of the platform and the evolution of the platform that we have run about a month ago. If you look on our LinkedIn, Portaltech LinkedIn page, you can find the posting of the recording and the slides from that session. And also 2 weeks ago, we have run a panel with Everything £5, which is a retail customer of ours who had recently gone live on SAP Commerce Cloud and who actually migrated from an on-premise version. And actually today's session is diving a little bit deeper into the technical aspects and best practices around such a migration. But 2 weeks ago, we ran a panel with Everything £5 on SAP. So if you want to hear a little bit more about their feedback and how the migration had been for them, and also get a little bit of the insight from SAP's side, then please also check that out on our LinkedIn page. There is a link, or don't hesitate to reach out directly to myself, or just drop a message to Portaltech Reply webpage on LinkedIn, and we will share the links with you, of course. So, all right, let's now proceed to the brief introduction of Portaltech Reply. I must mention that in the very first session of this year that we have run back in May, there is a little slightly longer introduction of Portaltech Reply. So I'm not going to go into too much detail today for the sake of time, but we'll just briefly browse over it. So today there are two speakers. So you can see myself on the right-hand side. So about 8 years experience with e-commerce and system integration services, but over 14 years in total in experience right now in different areas, but mostly concerned with technical projects and IT projects. On the left-hand side is Gabriele Muso, who is here with me today. He's a senior consultant with Portaltech Reply. He's been with us for 6 years, and over the course of this time, he's gained some really good experience in different verticals, such as grocery, wholesale, retail, and travel. And most recently, he had been occupying a leading position on the Everything £5 engagement, which I have mentioned earlier, and had overseen and led the team for this cloud migration. And he actually will be the one sharing his insights and his learnings today for most of the session. So in terms of Portaltech Reply, we are a Gold SAP partner, and we have also reached recently an SAP recognized expertise for SAP Commerce. We are the only company in UK to hold both of those statuses simultaneously. We have been for a while, we have been doing this for about a decade now. And our three main areas of focus is customer experience, optimization tools, and engineering. So under customer experience, we focus on large scale and high performance implementations. We help our clients with digital transformation for most of it, and that concerns not just the SAP Commerce solution itself, but we also can dive into areas such as CDC and customer experience management, or Qualtrics solution, and diverse front ends and so on. And we also advise our customers on strategy and roadmaps and how to build out their commerce technological ecosystems. In terms of optimization, we of course work on topics of contextualization and personalization, things like A/B testing and digital touch points optimization. So strategy around your digital touch points is also something that we can advise on. Underlying all of that is, of course, engineering, system integration, which is the core of our business, integrations to various backend systems, as well as performance tuning of the platform and data migration. And data migration is actually a topic that we'll be talking about probably for most of the session today, and I hope that's what you joined here for. So in terms of the wider picture, we are part of Reply. Reply is a network of companies. We're a group predominantly domiciled in Europe, UK, Germany, and Italy. There are the three head offices, but we also have branch outs in Eastern Europe, Asia, and the Americas. And we're over 1,000 people strong worldwide. At the group level, we're also gold partner of SAP. In terms of Portaltech's experience, these are our logos. So as you probably noticed, there are some very different areas that we have covered, different verticals that we have covered. Of course, you will see quite a bit of travel, such as EasyJet and Emirates, and IAG, who is the holding company of British Airways and Iberia. And you will also see the label of Travel Accelerator on the right top side. So we were SAP Commerce Cloud Travel Accelerator partner, development partner with SAP. We're still working on that with them. Other than that, you will see a couple of B2B names. So Sanmar on the right-hand side and British American Tobacco, to name a couple of those that are B2B implementations. As well as you will also notice Coop and Spar and Iceland, who are CPG, FMCG, and groceries-oriented clients. So you can see that we have been active across quite a diversity of clientele with different needs and across different verticals. So that concludes actually my introduction of Portaltech and Reply and our experience to date. And this is where I would actually like to hand over now to Gabriele to start the main part of our session today. Gabriele, over to you.
Yeah, hello. Hi, everyone. And thanks, Kirill, for the handover and for the introduction. So let me start with SAP Commerce Cloud version 2. I believe some of you attended the previous webinar where we discussed into details about the SAP CCV2 solution. And by the way, as Kirill mentioned, recording and deck of that webinar are available within our resources in Portaltech LinkedIn page. But anyway, I would like to start with a brief overview of the CCV2, just to refresh the memory a little bit. So, as I guess we all know, SAP Commerce is the solution that naturally evolved from the old Ibris platform. Given that, and considering that more and more solutions on the market were moving on the cloud, also SAP introduced a hosting option, initially on SAP Cloud Infrastructure, and then the hosting has been moved to the public cloud on Microsoft Azure. And this actually gave birth to the version 2 of Commerce Cloud. So SAP Commerce Cloud features all the the great commerce capabilities as the well-known SAP Commerce Core, And along with those, there are some new ones, such as, for example, the Commerce Cloud portal that, as we will see later on, plays a key role also during and after the migration. So going into next slide, as you can see from the image, the cloud infrastructure is quite straightforward. We can kind of consider two main entry points. So for the technical users on the left-hand side of the image, here from customer or partner, the interaction with the cloud will mainly be via the SAP Commerce Cloud portal. From there, they will be able to deploy code changes, manage builds, manage the environments, and perform some of the DevOps tasks. While for the business users or customer staff on the right-hand side of the image, the interaction will be mainly via the lower environments using, for example, the back office for the usual phases like, let's say, user acceptance test, review, approval, and so on. And the production environment, of course, to manage the daily business activities. Lastly, the final customers as well will interact with the system via the live production environment, accessing the storefront to navigate and shop. So as you can see from what I just described, is literally business as usual, as we all know it, plus the cloud portal. Then all the rest happening in the middle is taken care of by the cloud build platform, as you can see in the image highlighted in yellow. So after this brief refresh on Commerce Cloud, let's now move to the core topic of the webinar, that is the migration to cloud. So here, I would actually like starting with the list of few key points that we gathered as the result of our experience as Portaltech and my personal experience with migrating an existing project from an on-premise solution to SAP Commerce Cloud. So if you ask me what a migration to cloud project is about, I'd say the following. First of all, upgrade. So the upgrade is considered as a prerequisite for the migration project, meaning that it is best practice, suggested by SAP as well, to first upgrade the Ibris or SAP Commerce version, and then separately execute the migration to cloud. This because a migration project is delicate, so it is really necessary to do as much as possible to reduce the risks and facilitate the track of changes introduced. For this reason, it is highly recommended to first go live with a version upgrade, and then after a stability period, plan for the migration go live. A second point would be then the project structuring and the build process. Here you will have, first of all, to make sure that you're working with a Git repository accessible from the internet so that the code can be fetched from the cloud build platform, and then structure and define the build process via the manifest.json file. This is actually something new, something that has been introduced with the cloud platform, and I kind of feel it's quite convenient because you will have all the configuration in one place, including, for example, the definition of the aspects roles. That is, to keep it simple, where we assign a role like back office to node A, storefront to node B, API to node C, and so on. Then a third point that I would highlight is for sure the infrastructure configuration. And this can easily be taken care of from the Commerce Cloud portal. And the last point, but actually the one that represents the core of the whole project, is the migrate data part. This consists in the migration or copy of data from the on-premise source DB to the target one, that is a Microsoft Azure SQL DB. It is fair to say that the migration process represents the most critical part of the whole migration project. Now, given these key points and having covered them, I would like to kind of zoom in onto two topics. The first one of them is the preparation of the environment and the data. And actually, before going through the next slides, let me add a note. So the walkthrough that I'm giving you guys here is from an SI perspective. But we must keep in mind that the migration to SAP Cloud project is a joint effort and benefits from the collaboration with the SAP team. So all the actions that we are describing here are to be considered in sync with what SAP team will be doing. As an example, I could actually mention the concept of SAP Cloud Readiness Checks. So just to give you a hint, those are kind of milestones to be met by the client and partner, where SAP is actually assisting you to make sure that everything is in place as per plan in order to proceed to a successful migration. Okay, so said that, let's talk about the environment preparation. So by default, SAP Cloud comes with a development, a staging, and a production environment. To be said on this point that according to the license agreement, SAP can actually provide additional environments, like for example, to each of the lower environments. So when it comes to the environment preparation, the starting point are for sure the infrastructure requirements. According to project needs, there will be different requirements to be met, and usually those are driven by the expected level of performance. So given the environments and identified the requirements, the tuning activity is to be done in collaboration with the cloud support team in order to achieve the optimal setup. Of course, as part of your migration project, you will start the setup tuning on the lower environments of development and staging to finally come up to the production to be. So to discuss that, to discuss about the production to be, let's actually move to next slide. So with previous slide, we have assumed that all the preparation on lower environments were done, including some test data migration, and we will actually come back on that when we will talk about the data preparation. Now, if we focus on the preparation of the production to be environment, we can for sure say that this is one of the key phases for the migration project. So all the activities, and I really want to kind of stress on this point, all the activities of configuration, test data migration, functional testing, performance testing, and so on, done on the lower environments need to be performed as well on the production to be. So this because we want to reach the target of a finalized production environment as per the functional, technical, and performance requirements. So if I would have to say in order of actions, we will need first to execute a test data migration on the P1 environment using a DB dump from the live on-prem production. These two firstly test the migration process again, and secondly, have a proper set of data to be used for the functional testing. Of course, side note here, you will need to remember to anonymize the sensitive data that are coming from production. And actually, a second note on this, according to our experience, I would suggest as part of your plan to leave time for more than one migration dry run on the P1 environment. Then, as regards the technical and performance requirements, the goal is to finalize the setup of the production to be in order to guarantee the expected level of performance. So here, with no doubts, a key role is played by the execution of the performance test. You will need to have a strong and reliable performance test pack that you will be running as many times as it's needed to reach the target setup. So summarizing, if we had to summarize the main actions to be executed to finalize the production environment, we could say, firstly, to execute a data migration with anonymized live production dump, then assign production roles to the cloud aspects. So identify which one of the nodes will play the role as back office, which one will be the storefront node, which one will be the API, and so on, and structure the build via the manifest file. Then perform functional testing, execute multiple rounds of performance tests. And again, this is really, really key activity. And then according to the results of the test and knowing the performance target, get the infrastructure bumped by the SAP Cloud support team. And again, here, we can actually see an example of the joint effort we mentioned before between the partner, the customer, and the SAP Cloud team. Okay, so let's now move to the other fundamental preparation, that is data preparation. So with this slide, I actually want to highlight the importance of preparing the data. I'm not really going into details as the required action may vary from project to project, but I just wanted to list some example of what you might need to do. So when you will be doing the first test data migration, usually happening on the development environment, the SAP migration team will perform a data review. And it is quite common that after that first dry run, there will be some adjustments to be done in the source DB. Of course, we are not talking about changing the data, that's clear. The adjustments I'm talking about can go from the removal of non-necessary indexes, or for example, types cleanup, or mapping of columns name between the source and the target tables, and so on. And here again, so sharing what's been our experience, I would suggest to keep in mind a few recommendations, such as always, so first one for sure is to always perform the test data migrations, also for the lower environments, using a replica of the on-prem production DB. Then the second one is to spend some time reviewing and identifying if there are some tables that are expected to not get frequent updates. The idea behind this is that those tables could potentially be migrated beforehand, and this would help to reduce the time necessary to complete the data migration activity in downtime. And actually, on reducing the overall time required, you might also want to consider a possible delta migration approach. This I'll kind of just leave it as a suggestion without going into details, because it really depends on the project specific needs, but keep it in mind as an option. So this actually concludes the first topic of the preparation. We can actually now switch to the second one. The second one is data migration and go live. So with previous slides, we covered the preparation, the performance testing, and so the main activities to reach the go live readiness. Now let's assume that we are ready, that all the checks have been passed, that the go live has been signed off by the business. The next natural step is, of course, the data migration and the actual cutover go live on cloud. So during the cutover or go live release, just call it what you prefer, there will be a set of steps and actions to be done beforehand, and those usually are heavily dependent on the project. So we're not going into details there. So assuming that all those steps specific to the project have now been completed, we will reach to a point when the data migration is to be performed. This is when the SAP team will play a major role. So the source database is prepared as per SAP request, such as all cron job stops, cooldown executed, replica disconnected from production master, and so on. And then it is handed over to SAP Cloud migration team. The team will execute the data copy from source to target DB. One thing you want to keep in mind here is that the time required is actually linear with the number of records that are being migrated. But I assume that, I mean, if we are at this stage, so we are talking about the actual cutover, you would already know that because of the multiple dry runs that you previously executed. So once the copy is completed, there is a validation executed by the SAP team, and then it is suggested also for the SI and the customer to execute a validation, like for example, performing table counts, check the sizes, and so on. After that, the application is started and it's getting tested. Again here, thanks to the multiple dry runs that you've had executed before, the team at this stage would have had identified a proper test to be executed to make sure that in a reasonable amount of time, that the data integrity has been preserved and no corruption happened during the copy. And one thing to add here, maybe obvious to say, but keep in mind that the production DB, so the source DB, is kept as is and is available as a backup. So we can now say that once all these activities, steps, and actions have been performed, the data migration has been successfully completed. So we move to next step. Here we are at the actual final step of our migration project, that is the go live. As you can see from the slide, I have included quite a strong statement here, but I truly believe that it is essential to underline it. So the go live plan is as strong as its rollback process. Of course, we all work for the best and successful completion, but we must be ready for the worst. So let me actually start from the rollback strategy. A strong suggestion here, again, taken from our experience, is to prepare multiple versions of the rollback strategy. Like in our case, 2 versions of the rollback strategy were enough. One was covering the case in which the go live was getting aborted, and the second one in case a rollback was needed after having gone live on the cloud environment. So while the first version is, I think it's quite straightforward, as all the systems will be connected back to the on-prem DB, the second one requires some additional actions, such as the migration of the data from the SAP Cloud DB back to the on-prem DB. This, I'm actually referring to those data generated and written on the DB after having gone live on cloud. So in our case, for example, we prepared a few scripts to export the delta of data and import them back in the on-prem DB. And we executed multiple tests along with the dry runs to ensure that no data inconsistency was introduced along with the import. This again highlights the importance of having tested each single and even what might sound like an insignificant step. So having covered the rollback, now let's go to the, let's finally go and talk to the, about the go live procedure. So brief recap from previous slide, we have assumed that our cutover is proceeding as expected. The data migration was successfully completed. Tests done by SAP team, by customer and partner team have passed, and the client has approved the go live. So it's actually a go. So the go live procedure can now start. Here again, there will be custom steps to be done as per project requirements, and then some other steps that are typical and actually dictated by SAP Cloud. So those steps are actually well explained in SAP documentation. And the really good thing is that they can be easily executed from the SAP Cloud console. And again, this highlights, as I think I mentioned here and there before, the benefit of using the SAP Cloud solution. This because, many of the typical release tasks, such as, for example, I'd say the setting of the IP filtering, enabling the storefront monitoring, or removing the maintenance page, can be done with literally a couple of clicks from the Cloud console. And also the actual go live is a one-click button from the console. So once all the actions are done, is literally one click and we are done. The site is live on SAP Cloud. So surely the migration project is not trivial. And it really needs a lot of attention, as I mentioned, on the preparation, on the performance part, on the infrastructure. But then once you are live, I think it will really be not long before you realize the benefit of running on SAP Commerce Cloud. So this actually concludes my second and final topic. And but before handing back to Kirill, I would actually sneak in one final slide. So yes, so after reviewing the deck, I thought about few takeaways that I'd really like you to get from the session. This because I kind of touch based on the what are the main points to take care of, but I would really like to let's say summarize and give you guys 5 takeaways. So first of all, avoid technical upgrade and cloud migration in the same go live. This I think we mentioned at the beginning as multiple reasons. So this is absolutely the first point to keep in mind. Second one is remember to KISS. KISS as in keep it short. So identify the best approach to reduce downtime. And for this, we mentioned the analysis of the tables and the possible delta approach that can be applied to your project. Third one, with no doubts, is test, test, test. So functional and especially performance tests are playing a key role in the migration project. Then the fourth one is regarding planning. So planning is key. You need to have a clear and strong go live and rollback strategies. And lastly, collaboration and communication between SI, SAP, and client. So now that's really all from me. Hope these few slides gave you a bit of insight of what are the crucial points to take care of during a project of migration to SAP Commerce Cloud. Of course, I'm conscious that there are a lot more details that can be discussed further. So I'll be absolutely happy to have a follow-up if you like. And for that, you can contact me on LinkedIn. Thank you, guys. Thank you for taking the time to participate to the session. And now, for real, I'm handing over to Kirill for the Q&A. Kirill?
Gabri, thank you so much. It's been a great presentation and very well delivered. So We've got a couple of questions going on here. I'm hearing a little bit of an echo somewhere. I'm not sure where from, but just 1 second, bear with me. Okay, so just 1 second, guys. I'm not quite sure where that's coming from. All right, so we've got a couple of questions that are in the chat. Let's have a look at them. So the first question is from Mark. Is it really impossible to have upgrade and migration in one go?
Okay, so to respond to this question, let's start saying that nothing is impossible. Okay, so, but the point that I would like to stress here is that it is really discouraged practice to mix up the upgrade and the migration to cloud in the same go live. This because they are both delicate projects. So we really do not want to increase the level of risk. Also, I think you should consider that in case of some errors, it will be really hard or almost impossible sometimes to verify the root cause and establish if there was coming from the upgrade or from the migration.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Gabriel. And David is asking, how long did it take for the migration project to be completed?
Okay, so if I refer to the Everything £5 project, I can't really report an exact timeline for the migration part because the whole project was a lot broader. We actually covered a functional upgrade, a technical upgrade, and finally the migration to SAP Cloud. So what I think it's fair to say is that once the code-free phase is reached, then the time required to migrate and go live on cloud, it's mainly dictated by how long it takes to get the finalized infrastructure that meets performance target, and the time needed to execute the multiple dry runs so that the team has the full confidence for the actual cutover and go live to production. So I could say like this last part that I described could be done in a few months.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you for that, Gabriel. Vikramjit is asking, how reliable is snapshot restore process for CV2?
So on this one, I would say, again, I'm honestly thinking, sharing from my experience. So initially, we had a few issues with this functionality, but actually, as I mentioned throughout the presentation, the collaboration was with SAP team was absolutely great. So whenever we had a problem with the snapshot, the support cloud team actually covered whatever was the need that we asked them. But then, I mean, they kind of worked on the functionality, and now I think it's actually quite reliable.
Cool. All right. I hope that answers Vikramjit's question. We've got a couple of more actually. It's quite active today. So Ryan's asking, what is an indicative timeline for lift and shift cloud migration? I think that's really something that we kind of touched on. It was similar to David's question, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
correct.
There are a couple of other questions. How does SAP Commerce Cloud stand in terms of pricing compared to other cloud solutions like AWS or Google Cloud?
So in terms of pricing, actually, I I don't have the answer, the exact answer. So maybe Kirill, for this question, we can note it down and come back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the important point to note here is that SAP Commerce Cloud, it's a slightly different service offering, so to say. AWS and Google Cloud are infrastructure offerings, and they are available, so you could be hosting different applications on that platform. While SAP Commerce Cloud is sort of an integrated offering, it is the application itself with the infrastructure. So we can definitely take that away and we could look at it. But I think SAP Cloud itself in a comparable context, I don't know if it actually compares with AWS and Google Cloud in the sense that they don't offer just infrastructure by itself, right? Which is what the main AWS and Google Cloud offering is. So I'm not sure those would be comparable. I hope I've answered that question. Did that help?
Yeah, it was helpful. Yeah, I was just wondering, like, I know it's kind of a different, products that you're basically comparing. I was just wondering, because with the SAP Commerce Cloud, you're also need to rely a little bit on a SAP support team, which is like my next question.
Yeah.
And I guess that will, of course, be part of the price that
yes, absolutely. So
is paying, right?
Yeah. So regarding the support is actually included with the license price. So as soon as you get the license, you will get full support from the support cloud team. And actually, there's a specific after go live support that is with one dedicated person 24/7 for a period of time. And then that is called the hypercare period. And then after that, it continues again with the 24/7 with the standard support cloud team.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys for your questions. If there aren't any more questions, or if you do have actually any follow-up questions and you do want to get in touch, so this deck will be shared, and of course these are all clickable, so you can go through to our LinkedIn pages. You got me there on the right-hand side, most right. You also got Portaltech reply page, LinkedIn at the top. These are the webinars that we have ran so far. So as you can see, the first three are focusing on the B2B commerce, as we really see that landscape changing lately. And then we refocused our attention on SAP Commerce Cloud, as we see that also a very important topic coming up right now, and there's been some significant changes in the platform recently that we really wanted to dive into and highlight. So this is our sixth webinar according to the schedule, and we've got one more. So we'll be talking about B2B Commerce Cloud, B2B Commerce concept on the Commerce Cloud. We'll be showing a bit of a demo, what we have managed to come up with in a very short period of time. And we'll talk a little bit about ETAs and the timeline that you can expect from such an implementation. And there are a couple of more actually webinars that are in the works, really, really interesting ones. So stay tuned for those. I think we would like to gather a few solution architects for a roundtable and talk about commerce. And I think that could particularly be interesting for the crowd that turned up for today's webinar. And also we're by the way, that would probably happen somewhere in September. And we're also looking at the business side of things. So e-commerce directors or heads of that we want to gather around one table and also talk with them about what they see is happening in the industry today and where they see this is happening and what kind of challenges they see down the road. So that's most likely to happen in October, but of course the agenda and the invitations will be out as soon as we have finalized that. So unless there's anything else from anyone else that would like to post in a question and a chat for any kind of questions, I'll give that a moment. All right, and then in that case, I would really like to thank you for spending your time with us today. I hope you found our webinar really interesting and engaging. Again, the materials from this webinar, the recording of the session, and the deck will be shared in the event page as well as in our news feed. And if you would like to make sure that you get the link, please drop us a message and we'll make sure to send it to you personally. And of course, looking forward to see you at the next webinar. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Bye.